They had claws, fangs, and the power to crush bones. And at first glance, you'd swear they were big cats. But they weren't. Not even close. Across the world and across time, evolution created predators that looked like lions, leopards, even saber-tooths. But they came from completely different families. And honestly, when I first found out about this, it messed with my head a bit. I always thought cats were just cats. But nature has this habit of repeating good ideas, and sometimes that means building a lion out of something that isn't a cat at all. It's one of evolution's favorite tricks. Two totally unrelated animals from completely different parts of the world end up looking almost exactly the same. Not because they copied each other or shared the same ancestors recently, but because nature kept solving the same problem in the same way. That's convergent evolution. When different species, often separated by millions of years and entire continents, evolve similar features because they're trying to survive in similar ways. And honestly, once you spot it, you start seeing it everywhere. Think dolphins and ichthyosaurs. One's a modern mammal, the other was a prehistoric marine reptile. But put their skeletons side by side, and it's hard to tell who's who. Streamlined bodies, flippers, even similar tails. Same design, completely different background. Or birds and bats. Both fly, both have wings, but birds are feathered dinosaurs, and bats are just weird little mammals that figured out flight on their own. It's not about who's related, it's about what works. So when evolution finds a body shape that's perfect for sneaking through tall grass, stalking prey, and delivering a bone-crushing pounce, that big cat formula, it's going to reuse it, even if it has to build it out of wombats. No, seriously, that happened. Let's look at the best fake cats evolution ever made. Well, let's start with one of the wildest examples out there. An animal that looked like a big cat, hunted like a big cat, even had retractable claws, but wasn't a cat at all. Thylacoleo, Australia's so-called marsupial lion. This thing lived during the Ice Age around 2 million to 46,000 years ago, and even though there were no real cats in Australia, evolution cooked up its own version, using marsupial parts. From a distance, it could pass for a leopard. Compact body, muscular chest, short snout, forward-facing eyes. All the big cat vibes were there. But when you zoom in, things get weirder. Thylacoleo had semi-opposable thumbs with retractable claws, a feature we usually only see in true felines. Its forelimbs were incredibly strong, almost overbuilt for grappling and holding down prey. But the real showstopper was its bite. Pound for pound, it had one of the strongest bites of any known mammal. Not because of huge canine teeth, though. It barely had those. Instead, it had blade-like premolars that acted like a pair of scissors, slicing clean through flesh and bone. No crushing, no chewing, just pure shearing power. And this wasn't some slow ground dweller either. Its skeleton suggests it could climb trees, maybe even ambush from above like a leopard. There's even speculation it dragged carcasses into trees to eat undisturbed. So how does something like this even happen? Thylacoleo evolved from a line of herbivorous marsupials, wombat relatives of all things. But with no cats, no wolves, no large predators around, evolution took the open predator niche and said, okay, let's get creative. And somehow, wombat DNA turned into one of the scariest ambush predators Australia ever saw. It wasn't a cat, but it didn't need to be. This was nature remixing the big cat blueprint, and honestly, it nailed the assignment. And just when you think evolution can't get any stranger, South America says, hold my fossil, meet Thylacos smilus, another predator with saber teeth, a big cat-like body, and the stare of an ambush killer. But again, no relation to cats, not even a little. This creature lived around 9 to 3 million years ago in what's now Argentina, and while it looked like some distant cousin of Smilodon, it was actually a metatherian, part of the marsupial side of the mammal family tree. At first glance, it checks all the big cat boxes. Muscular body? Yep. Long tail for balance? Check. Sharp claws and forward-facing eyes? Absolutely. But then you get to the head, and it's bizarre. Instead of regular saber teeth like a saber-toothed cat, Thylacosmilus had enormous upper canines that grew continuously like rodent teeth. And to protect them, it evolved huge bony flanges in its lower jaw, almost like built-in scabbards to keep the teeth from snapping off. It sounds awkward, but clearly, it worked. Thylacosmilus was likely an ambush predator, using stealth and precision to go for soft targets like the neck. It didn't have the bone-crushing bite of a jaguar or the slicing power of Thylacoleo, but those canines could have done serious damage if aimed just right. And again, this whole animal came from a completely different background. It wasn't a cat mimicking a saber-tooth, it was a marsupial experimenting with the same tools, just in its own weird way. Convergent evolution at its strangest, a non-cat with sabers, jaw guards, and a hunting style straight out of a National Geographic special. Some paleontologists even joke that Thylacosmilus looked like a saber-toothed cat designed by a committee that didn't agree on anything. But in its ecosystem, it did the job just fine. Another fake cat, another evolutionary curveball, and we're just getting started. Now, before real big cats even showed up, evolution had already been experimenting with a formula. Enter the nimravids, often called the false saber-tooths. And they're exactly what they sound like. Big cat-shaped predators that lived millions of years before actual felines evolved, but somehow looked almost identical. These creatures appeared as far back as 40 million years ago and stuck around for quite a while. But here's the twist. They weren't true cats. They weren't even in the same family. Nimravids split off from the carnivore family tree early on, forming their own separate branch. Think of them as evolutionary cousins who just happened to show up at the party dressed the same. Physically, they nailed the cat look. They had retractable claws, or at least something close to it, cat-like skulls with forward-facing eyes, and flexible spines perfect for ambush pouncing. Their body proportions were all about stealth, speed, and explosive power. Exactly what you'd expect from a big feline predator. Some of them, like the Hoplophonius, were even misidentified as early cats for decades. That's how convincing the resemblance was. Behavior-wise, they probably hunted a lot like modern leopards or tigers. Ambush tactics, short bursts of speed, attacking the throat or spine. Their saber-toothed species likely relied on precision rather than brute force, much like Smilodon would later on. But again, this wasn't feline evolution. It was parallel evolution. Cats hadn't even gotten started yet, and the nimravids had already perfected the look. It's almost like evolution said, let's give this cat-shaped predator thing a test run. And it worked so well. Nature used the blueprint again later, this time with actual felines. So yeah, fake cats before cats, and they were already killing it. Now, if nimravids were the prototype, then Barbourofelids were the remix. And this time, the resemblance to real big cats was almost too good. These beasts lived between 17 and 9 million years ago, and visually, they could have passed for a modern leopard, just more muscular, with a bigger head and a serious set of fangs. They were built for power. Broad chests, strong limbs, and thick necks gave them the perfect frame for tackling large prey. Their canines were long and blade-like, not quite sabers, but definitely not something you'd want sinking into your throat. Most species were ambush hunters, all about stealth and raw force rather than long chases. Some were the size of jaguars, others even bigger, and the way their bodies were put together, it's clear they played a similar role to big cats in their ecosystems. For a long time, there was actually a lot of debate over whether they actually fit on the mammal family tree. Their bones looked feline, really feline. But under the surface, they had their own quirks, and eventually, they were placed in their own distinct group, separate from true cats and earlier saber-toothed predators. Still, they absolutely nailed the big cat vibe. Barbourofelids roamed across Europe, Asia, and North America, holding their own at the top of the food chain. But over time, they disappeared, just as modern felines were rising and spreading across the same regions. It's kind of like they set the stage for the cats we know today, then quietly bowed out. So, after all that, slicing jaws, saber fangs, marsupial predators, and ancient lookalikes, What does it tell us? Honestly, I think it shows just how powerful a good idea can be. The big cat blueprint. Short snout, sharp claws, forward-facing eyes, pounce-first attitude. It's popped up again and again. Not because these animals were related, but because that shape works. It works for stalking, killing, surviving. And when you step back and look at it all, it kind of feels like nature kept reaching for the same tools over and over, tweaking the details, but keeping the same general design. Even when it had to build a lion out of wombat parts or give saber teeth to something with a pouch. That's convergent evolution, not imitation. Just different animals finding the same answers to the same problem. And honestly, I love that. It makes these creatures feel like alternate versions of animals we already know. Like nature hit shuffle and came up with some bizarre but strangely familiar results. So, which one do you think was the most convincing? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more of this, I've got a list of animals that looked like wolves, but weren't even close. That might be the next one. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment with what you would like to see in the following videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.